Good day and welcome to Predators Proclivity, where we look at the data from the season for the NHL Nashville Predators and make comments upon it. I'm your host, Preston Proctor. I meant to call out the other day a little bit of milestone for me in the show on the 24th of April, 2024. 4/24/24 was my 24th podcast for this show. A little bit of symmetry. You guys know numbers, and I had noticed that beforehand, and then slipped my mind when I was talking about Vancouver. So, there you go. That was a little bit of a milestone here. Okay, so the Predators played last night, Vancouver, in Nashville against Vancouver, and lost 2-1. They played well, did not take advantage of the opportunities that they had on the power play multiple times throughout the game. They did play well, had lots of chances. It seemed like Vancouver was pushing them to the outside. They were taking a lot of shots from the outside, and the goaltender usually had a pretty good view of it. And if there was a lot of talk about how DeSmith was backup goaltender and that the starting goaltender was out, and so it would be an advantage for the Preds. Well, he's still a NHL goaltender for one of the best teams in the league, so he's not going to suck. And he didn't. He played well, when he got his eyes on the puck, he made the stop. He did it's obvious that he is part of the Vancouver team because he took a nice little dive when I think it was McCarron came in and bumped him and just completely flopped. They rarely call flopping against Vancouver as opposed to calling it against the Kings. Okay, so one of my favorite stories, Mike Smith was a goaltender down in Phoenix, and Dustin Brown, captain of the Kings at the time, playing in front of the net. Well, Mike Smith took his big old goalie stick, slashed Dustin Brown in the back of the knee, and Dustin fell to the ice. They got the slash on Mike Smith, but they also called Dustin Brown for diving. Now, no. He kind of got a bad rap. I think it seemed like in general they thought Dustin Brown couldn't skate. So whenever, somebody ran into him, pushed him, knocked him down, that he was just falling down. No fault of the player that just banged into him or committed interference. But anyway, so, nice flop on the part of DeSmith last night. Saw a couple other Vancouver players going to the ice. Thought it was interesting. There was one play where there was a slash and then a rough, and I think that's the play where we, or I guess it was it the boarding interference, whatever. But Stastny wound up going out for the whole game, and then there was a roughing that followed up from that, looking out for your teammate. Well, number 8 for Vancouver. Couldn't find anybody. Since Stastny was on the ice, generally what happens when there's a conflict, the third person into a conflict gets an unsportsmanlike penalty call. That's the rule. You are not allowed to interact with somebody that is interacting with somebody else. Well, this number 8 was skating up to one bunch of people and throwing punches or pushing the guy and splashing him, and then he skated over to somebody else. And I guess because he had so I guess to complete the story. So what happens is that's why when something happens on the ice, you see all the skaters pair up. Like a Vancouver player will go over and he'll grab hold of a Predator, and that Predator will grab hold of them. Okay, they're paired up. All right, they're not fighting each other, but they're paired up. That way, they're not the third person. They got somebody that they're hanging out with. Sometimes it does wind up being a little bit of a skirmish, but not always. Generally, all the players are doing is finding a player from the other team to stand next to so they don't get the third man in penalty. Not number 8 last night. I guess since Stastny was on the ice, getting ready to leave for the entire rest of the game, he didn't know what to do. So had a little bitty guy, it looked like anyway, compared to everybody else, skated over to one Pred that was actually kind of, they were kind of pushing and shoving each other. They were not just holding on. And he started pushing and shoving the Predators player, and then got tired of that, went over, skated somewhere else, and started pushing on that guy too, who was also holding on to another Vancouver player. And I'm watching this on the screen, and I'm going, he's got to get called for that. Nope. Did not get called for that. Did not get called for that. You watch some other guy get called for that, but not last night. Vancouver, as my wife likes to say, is a team of a bunch of cheaters, and they practice it. Back with the Sedin twins, they knew how to flop, fly down, grab the head. I loved it one time. Player fell down on the ice, grabbed his head. You could see him stick his head up and look around a little bit, and he put his head back down. He stuck his head up, look around a little bit more, waiting to see if the penalty had been called or if it was time just to get up and stop pretending that he was hurt. But they do. I do believe that they practice this in Vancouver. Something's been going on for a long time. The other thing that I thought was ought to have been called, and I don't know that this is actually a penalty. However, whenever Vancouver would ice the puck, all the Vancouver players would go over and jump on the bench, and a bunch of other people would jump on the bench because the officials had to spend about a minute sorting all that out. You see the linesmen over there pointing to people to get back on the ice, pointing to them to get back on the ice. They wouldn't do it. It took them a couple of times of pointing at the guys and telling them to get back on the ice and telling other people to get back on the bench every time. And to me, they're doing that intentionally, and it should be a bench minder at some point. Give them a warning. Hey, look, you guys can't keep doing this. It's just not right. They know what they're doing. They know they're icing the puck. They know they're trying to get people out there, and they're hoping the refs don't catch it. Well, that's an unsportsmanlike penalty for me on the bench. So a bench minor should have been called against them at some point. Maybe that's not in the rules, but it sure ought to be. Oh, my gosh. blatantly. And that's the kind of stuff you get out of Vancouver. The blatant flopping and the blatant this. And they know, behind the play, when they know the ref isn't going to look, they'll knock a player down. There were so many players, you'd swear the Nashville Predators players didn't know how to skate last night because there was always one of them on the ice, laying down on the ice behind the play. And it's like, okay. And then there was one play where we got called for interference in front of the goaltender, and a similar play happened, and Vancouver didn't get called for it. And, I just hate that kind of crap. There's lots of explanations for it, but when you see stuff like that consistently throughout the game, one team finding a way not to get called for penalties, come on, guys. There's no real reason for them to be pushing the Vancouver story. I remember back when Vegas's first year in the league, and they went to the Stanley Cup and they beat the Kings in 4 games. That whole season, not only to begin the season did they get favorable terms on drafting and getting people, but they got favorable calls from the refs, or non-calls from the refs too. And amazingly, somehow, For doing nothing, Drew Doughty got kicked out of the game in Game 3 and got a game misconduct. He had to sit out Game 4 for doing nothing, almost nothing. I mean, shouldn't have been a penalty on that play yet. There he is, kicked out of the game, and just so many times Vegas got non-calls. They could pretty much walk up to somebody with a gun, shoot them in the head, and that person would be called for lead poisoning and have to go sit on the bench. I mean, that sort of stuff. So I know that, and I think they're doing the same with Edmonton. They're really pushing the Connor McDavid story. He's the lead story everywhere. Nobody ever talks about the Western Conference, hardly ever. On NHL, if you go to NHL.com, almost any day, the lead story is on some Eastern Conference team. It's annoying. I remember this a couple of weeks ago. There was some real big thing had happened for the Kings or the Preds, and what was the lead story? Some guy getting 3 goals. I mean, maybe getting a hat trick or something like. I don't know. Anyway, if I knew that story better, it would make more sense. But I think the NHL site it could stand a lot of improvement. Frankly, I always go to ESPN site and look at the NHL because I can't stand to go to NHL. The formatting and everything, the way they do things, it's just, I don't like it. Doesn't suit me. Other people may like it. That's why there are so many different makers of wine because people have different tastes. But anyway, I digress. What are we doing here? Oh, Preds game, right. So anyway, it's a little concerning at times. I know in the playoffs they want the players to play. I got it. I get that. At some point, though, if the refs don't, if the refs don't exert a little bit more control over the game and manage these different things that the teams are doing, somebody's going to get hurt. There's going to be a huge fight, and the game is going to get out of control, and then the refs will be sitting there going, I don't know how that happened. Well, you guys let it happen because you let one team play to their heart's content, and then the other team got really frustrated. So anyway, the Preds had lots of opportunities last night. Did get one with about 3 minutes to go, which was great, and it was a very hard fought game, and from the skating and the shooting, it's just amazing. All the blocked shots, people on the ice blocking shots. I mean, Vancouver was really all over the ice doing that. It was hard to get a shot through. Same for the Preds. I think. I think. Whatever time it was that the first goal happened for Vancouver, it was the first goal of the game. I think they only had like 12 for the entire game. It wasn't like they weren't shooting. But people oh my gosh, you see these guys wind up and take the slap shot and then it hits somebody in the side and these guys, I think on both teams probably, they're probably going to be really bruised. But yeah, great. There's just, the Preds just had some unlucky things happen. They just needed a little bit more luck last night. Sometimes that's all it takes. There was the one shot that got past the goaltender, landed, started heading towards the goal line, and then turned away from it, and then sat down and laid flat. Different luck, different roll of the dice. It rolls back towards the goal line and then goes in. As slow as it was going, I think one of the Vancouver players would have still gotten back there and knocked it out. But, that's kind of the luck of the draw, right? Rub of the green, the golfing term. So, I think all things taken into consideration, the Preds played really well. You can't expect to win every game, especially here in the playoffs, unless you're one of the other teams we'll get to in a minute. I thought this game was going to go this series would go 6 or 7. It's going to go 6 or 7. Both teams are playing really well, and that's what happens. Very, very tight games. It's fun to watch. Playoff hockey is fun to watch. So much better in person. We had slightly different seats last night than we normally do, but it's still in the same corner. Our seats are. I like being in the corner because I can see the whole ice and I can watch what players are doing behind the play and seeing the coming on off the box, coming out in and out of the bench. Our seats are on the same side as the player boxes, the team boxes. I prefer to be on the other side, but we haven't been able to. The first year we were here, we had tickets on that side and then moved to the other side, and now the tickets that we had gotten on the side where you get to see into the bench, we don't have. It's you can still. I still like being able to have that whole ice view because then, you can still see what's going on. You're just looking down the ice and watching it. So I like that. I like that perspective. I like, getting an idea. When you see two people go in to the boards and the play moves on, how chippy are they? In fact, the first. I forget the player. I think it was number 13. The first year we were here, I just had to. He became one of my favorite players immediately because something had happened. The play was going the other way. The refs were skating the other way. And he just whacked somebody in the back with his stick. And I'm like, okay, that guy's got good awareness. He didn't hurt the guy. He just got a little annoyed slap, and then off they went. So it was kind of funny. I can appreciate little things like that. Anyhow, so that's kind of my recap on the Vancouver game last night. Moving on to the rest of the playoffs, we've got the Rangers. Washington are 3-0. We've got that's. We're kind of pulling for the Rangers there. The Rangers won in I think that was last night, 3-1, and I had that one. I had the Rangers picked in 5, but they're looking pretty good to sweep that series. Florida, Tampa Bay is also 3-0. The next game for the Rangers is Sunday. Florida. Their next game is tonight. Florida is leading Tampa Bay 3-0. They play tonight. I don't think all of these are going to be sweeps. They are playing. The Rangers are playing at Washington, and Florida is at Tampa Bay here in Game 4. One of them is going to sweep, and the other one will win in 5. I think at this point. I'm so good at picking this. Carolina is also 3-up on the Islanders. They play tonight as well. So we've got the top 3 matchups in the Eastern Conference are all 3-0. Go figure. I had the Islanders in 6, but I told you guys I would be wrong about all this stuff. Yeah, I thought the Islanders were going to show up a little bit better, but so far, not so much. They were leading 3-0 in Game 2 and wound up losing that game 5-3. I lost Game 1 3-1, Game 3 3-2. It's not like it hasn't been competitive. Just in the end, Carolina has edged them out. And the one non-sweep looking game in the Eastern Conference is the Boston-Toronto. 2-1 there. Boston leading Toronto 2-1. Boston did win the last game 4-2, so they had split the games in Boston, and now they're in Toronto. In the Western Conference, we've got Dallas, Vegas. Now, Dallas, the number 1 seed in the West, is down 0-2. Down 0-2. They were the only home team to lose game 1 of their series, and now they've lost 2. So they play tonight as well in Vegas. And I guess the Knights were 3-0 against Dallas in the regular season. They won 2 in Dallas and 1 in Las Vegas. Those 3 games were early in the season, but here they are 0-2 playing in Las Vegas tonight. I feel like Vegas kind of limped into the playoffs, but boy, they are not limping in the playoffs right now. I'm not a Vegas fan for a number of different reasons. I think I did not like the NHL biasing them. I have a Vegas shirt. I was really looking forward to the team coming to Vegas. I thought they announced their name a little late, so all I've got is a T-shirt. I went to Vegas and all I got was this crappy T-shirt. Now, I've got a Vegas T-shirt. I'm on the fence on keeping it. I like Dallas. Dallas has had a lot of really good players over the years. And Brett Hull, who played most of his career in St. Louis, also played in Dallas. Just such a fun player. I always liked watching him play. Had a few Kings go through Dallas. Tippett, what's his John Tippett? The special teams coach for the Kings went to Dallas and was the head coach there. And they wear green, and green's my favorite color. So I don't really care for the green they're wearing now. I like the darker green that they used to have. But yeah, I want to beat Dallas when we play them, but otherwise, I'm happy with them winning. Which they're not doing right now. So they're 0-2 to Vegas, playing tonight, Game 3 tonight in Las Vegas, the first game this playoff season in Vegas. Vancouver and Nashville, already talked about that. Vancouver is up 2-1. We play again Sunday, early Sunday, 4 o'clock Central Time. 4 o'clock Central Time. It was interesting going to the game last night because it was 80-some degrees. So you're dressing to go into an ice arena, but you've got to walk through 80-some degree temperature to get there. It worked out. They had a bunch of stuff out on the pavilion in front of the stadium, which was fun. A lot of people hanging out and they bring out that car, and you get to take a sledgehammer and take some wax at it. It's painted in the colors of the other team. It's pretty whacked up by now. It's kind of hard to damage it further, but people still get their cracks at it. So it's kind of fun. We went out there. We hung out in the front for a little bit, then went in to the game. It's kind of nice. The game was a little bit early last night. My wife is running a half marathon this morning. Had to get up early and take her down there. The Rock and Roll Nashville. The Rock and Roll Nashville half marathon is today, and the marathon is tomorrow. You get to run through Nashville. She loves it. They put up all these different bands, and so I guess if you get tired, you can kind of stop and listen to a band. And then the other matchup, the next matchup, Winnipeg, Colorado. Boy, did I get that one wrong. I had the Jets in 4 or 5. Colorado is up 2-1. Colorado is playing well, 6-2 and 5-2. The first game was 7-6 Winnipeg in Winnipeg, and then Colorado won 5-2 in Winnipeg, and now 6-2 in Colorado. They play again tomorrow night, just like the Preds. And also, just like the Preds, the Kings will be playing tomorrow night, and they lost last night to Edmonton. So they are down 2-1. Edmonton's leading the series 2-1. The Kings lost 6-1 last night. That was a little painful, but we move on. All right. Well, so what about some stats about last night's game? Since that's kind of what I do, what I track. Not tracking so much about playoffs because I think the playoffs become a little bit different. You can still look at the trends of the regular season and instantiate some things, but the intensity of the playoffs is its own animal. But last night, for the first time this season, 5 previous games, 3 regular season, the Predators only scored 1 goal. Prior to Tuesday night's game, they had scored 2 goals in every game, and then they got 4 Tuesday night, and I guess they're still trying to average it out by only getting 1 last night. The Predators won a period at home for the first time this season in 3 games. Their game, not a big data set, but they hadn't won a period against Vancouver in Nashville. So that was a little bit different. That was good. Even last night, they didn't win the first period. They didn't win the second period. They did hold Vancouver to 2 goals. In their win in Vancouver, they held them to 1. But in losing 2 periods, they are 1-11 at home when they lose 2 periods. And it was a very similar circumstance. I think it was Boston. They lost the first period, lost the second period, scored 2 in the third to tie and go to overtime, and then they won it in overtime. So, given where they had been with Vancouver, I hated seeing them lose the first period, but I was not disheartened at that point. And I think also after losing 2, it would have been nice to tie the second. But I think they still looked good and had, only down 2. And took them a while to get their 1 goal. 3 minutes left. They still had a lot of chances. Didn't give up an empty netter. So they were that part of the game was really good. So when they lose 2, they're 1-11. If they only win 1 period, 6-8 at home. So winning 1 is not the best formula. All right, Sunday night will be the second home game in the playoffs against Vancouver. At home against Vancouver this season, as I said, they've only won 1 period, last night's third. They have lost the second period in all of the home games. And they've never had the lead, and all of that sucks. The second period strife is what my spreadsheet is called because I believe at home they don't play well in the second period, and against Vancouver, that's really highlighted. Now this season, as far as scoring goes, the Preds are being outscored at home. 38-45. They're outscoring in the second period by 1, so it's fairly even in the second period, and outscoring the teams by 11 in the third. If we can get to the third period not losing, it's a good sign. The Preds in Nashville, normally for the Preds, the winning goal is most likely in the second. In the opponents, it's the third. But last night, the winning goal was scored in the second. And now at home, the Preds are 23-17-2. 23-17-2 at home since February 16th, 9-2-2. Again, the percentages for tying each period, 37% in the first and second and 27% in the third. Again, the highest percentage in the first period is for the Preds to outscore by 1. That did not happen last night. In the second period, 27% that the opposition outscores the Preds by 1. That did happen last night. And then in the third period, 17% for the Preds to outscore the opponents by 1 or by 2. And they did do that. For the first goal of the game, at home, the Preds 16-5-2 if they get it, 7-12 if they don't. Not the worst if they don't, but much better, 3-1 roughly, if a little better than 3-1 if they do get the first goal of the game. So, the Preds played well last night. We need to get the game winner. We need to win in Nashville here Sunday at 4 Central. In order to do that, they're going to have to play better on special teams and win the second period. Definitely want to see both of those things. Otherwise, all I have control over that is sitting behind a mic and saying, hey, you guys should play better. And they love that. They totally love that. You walk up to one of the players and say, hey, why didn't you score? You need to score more. Yeah, be right on that. Yeah, it's that easy. Anyway, so that is the game that is coming up on Sunday night, 4 o'clock here in Nashville. Vancouver Canucks are winning 2-1. We did have a few Vancouver fans in the audience with sporting a variety of jerseys. I liked the brown one that I saw last night with the big V on the front, Vancouver spelled out in the middle of it. That's really old school there. Nice jersey. But, I had a few. Fun thing about playing Vancouver, one of the Canadian teams, is you get the Canadian national anthem too. The woman that did that did a really nice job. I like Colby Callett, who sang the United States national anthem. I just wish she'd picked up the pace a little bit. But there you go. I had a message from Jody Messina before the game. Good seeing her about standing with the Preds and talking about how when the Preds went to the Stanley Cup that everybody didn't think that they deserved to be there. Well, then they did because they got theirs. But yeah, fun game. Fun going to the Preds games. Playoff hockey is a lot of fun. The next game, Sunday night. So we will look to see what happens Sunday night. Hopefully the Preds walk out of there with a victory. Take it 2-2, go back to Vancouver. The format is 1-1-1 after this. One game in Vancouver. The next game in Vancouver will be Tuesday. So Sunday here in Nashville, and then Tuesday, and then Game 6, if it happens, will be next Friday, and then Game 7 if needed. I'm not sure what day that is yet, but we'll see if we get there. Anyhow, this is Preston Proctor. You have been listening to Predators Productivity. Thanks for being here. Y'all have a great weekend, and go Preds.